Thanks in Advance was recorded by a really close group of friends. It was me, Rick Musallam, and Griff Peters and Mike Keneally all playing guitar, and Joe Travers on drums. And we're really tight. And that was the original Bryan Beller band, which of course was also the same people in the Mike Keneally band for many years as well. So we did a lot of stuff together, and we hung out together, all the time. The thing that really brought us together and was one of the inspirations for the album was that our friend Wes Waymiller, bassist, who I'd been at Berkeley with back in the early 90s, passed away unexpectedly at age 34 due to thyroid cancer. And us gathering for the Thanks in Advance recording sessions in 2007 was really one of the first things that we did as a group after the memorial service, even though that was like a year before. It just felt like the right thing to do. They shot tons and tons of footage of us all hanging out and recording and having fun, and that ended up being the basis for the kind of 100-minute documentary behind the scenes movie To Nothing. And that was the name of the special edition DVD that went along with this album. It was 2008, DVDs were a thing. There's a lot of cool stuff of us just, recording guitar overdubs, and there's just some basic tracking, and then there's just stuff of just hanging out and joking around and being friends. I thought it would be a really, really cool thing to have all that footage, and it was really, really trippy to go back and look at it after 17 years. I hadn't seen some of that stuff in a while. We don't look a day older, I can tell you that. And each one of the songs had its own recording vibe. Like Greasy Wheel, we recorded that. The basics was me and Rick Musallam on guitar and Joe Travers on drums. And then Jeff Babco's doing great stuff on the Hammond organ, even though that was a separate recording, and I don't have footage of that. And I was really, really deep in my John Scofield, Up All Night and Uber Jam and Bump kind of era stuff. But it's just a really, really fun, funky tune, and very vintage funk in a way. And nobody plays that stuff better than Rick Musallam and Joe Travers. They're just so great on that funky groove shit. Cave Dweller is a bit heavier. It's just a really slow, kind of grindy dirge kind of song. And the original plan was for us to all gather at Griff's house. He had this beautiful house in Escondido that he had just remodeled. Had this great open room. We were going to record guitars in there and just make it sound really huge. And then, just a couple of days before we were going to start the recording, Griff's father died. And obviously it was a super heavy thing. And I told Griff, I was like, listen, we don't have to do this. We can just postpone. He was like, nope, absolutely not. I want to do this, and I want music, and I want to be able to do this. The song itself is about a long, dark night of the soul, a struggle against frustration. So Griff used it as a vehicle to kind of work out some of his initial stuff around his father passing away. And that's one of the reasons why it's such a great and deep sounding recording, and the performance is just really unbelievable. We got footage of all of it. Love, Terror, Adrenaline, Breakthrough was really that was the killer. And it was such a difficult song. We don't have any footage of Marco tracking it, but he actually recorded it. He used to have his drums set up in a storage space. He called Minnemann Storage was the name of his studio. And he killed it. He really understood and got this big song. And Mike Keneally, he was in Griff's house. We brought him in. It was a long 10-hour day of him recording this really, really difficult melody. We got footage of all of it. Some of it's hilarious, trying to work through this impossible melody that I wrote. He did such great work on it, and only Mike Keneally could have done it. I'm really, really grateful for all the work that both Mike and Marco put into that song, because it was a bitch. As far as mixing goes, it was 2008. Technology's changed a lot since then, and obviously so have my ears. I chose Forester Savell as the mix engineer for this remix project, because he's the one that I've been working with most lately. He mixed all of Scenes from the Flood, the big double concept album I put out, solo album in 2019. He also mixed all of the most recent Aristocrats album, Duck. A lot of people know him from his amazing work on the Carnival album Sound Awake, and Bear McCreary's The Singularity, which is this huge kind of rock opera project that just came out. But Forester's the man. And I felt like he could take these songs and kind of like open them up, reinvent them, reimagine them, and revolutionize them. So why is this remix EP called Calm Before the Storm? In 2006, like I said, my friend Wes Miller died. I quit my corporate job, moved to Nashville, and started work on this album right away. The story of the album was a narrative about tumult and inner conflict that basically works its way and gets more and more intense until it climaxes with the kind of terrifying melody of Love, Terror, Adrenaline, and then gets past it with the breakthrough melody. And then suddenly, from that point on, the album is really kind of like in a space of optimism and gratitude. And that's the point I'm trying to get to. And maybe everything's gonna be all right after all.
It's almost like thanks in advance, whatever's coming, it's okay.
Then, life went on and a lot of things happened. The Aristocrats exploded in 2011, and I got the Joe Satriani gig in 2013. And then in that same year, my marriage failed. And then I moved back from Nashville to Los Angeles. I drove across the country and had a somewhat infamous stop at a Crazy Pants gas station in Texas. I also learned some things about myself and human nature in that time that didn't exactly align with some of the kind of peaceful, happy vibes that I left at the end of Thanks in Advance. And so it was that cognitive dissonance that I was working through that kind of led me to develop the original ideas for Scenes from the Flood, even though it took another 6 years for that album to come out and come to fruition. And the very first idea that I had for that album was the song The Storm, which was kind of a metaphor for all the wild stuff that had suddenly swept through my life. So the calm moment before everything went nuts, that's where this EP ends. And I thought that the material that it took to get there deserved a fresh look. That's why I did this.